I met Charles in Cedar Grove, and that's where I was living at the time. And his daddy was a contractor, and so Charles came with his daddy that day up to Cedar Grove, and my sister and I had went to the spring to get some water, and up come the road was Charles with a pair of Bill overalls on, and he had been chewing on the strap of his Bill overalls. And my sister, she was a little flirt at that time because I was probably about 12, maybe 13 years old. And she says, "Look at that boy coming up the road. Let's go get him." And so I wouldn't go. I kind of stood back. And Charles, he was a little shy thing. He didn't want to be bothered with neither one of us. But I liked Charles when I first met him. I told my sister Joan, I says, I'm going to marry him one day, not even knowing his name or anything. I just liked the way he didn't like come on and try to be all of that with two good-looking girls in the road, and he was just like nice, just nice. He spoke, but that was about it. And then I met Charles again, and I saw him on the school bus. And I told my girlfriend, I says, you know what? That's the man I'm going to marry. He was driving a blue car. And I says, I'm going to marry him. And she says, you don't know what you're talking about. So on that, the next time that I saw him, I connected him with his two sisters, Lorraine and Cordis Barnette. And so I sent a letter by Lorraine to give to Charles, because Charles was living like down the street from where we live now. But when I asked him on the letter, I says, I need someone to escort me to the Valentine dance. And he wrote back and said he would. And that's how we got started dating each other. And now we got married June 6, 1964. And we had two sons, and we have two sons, and we've been together now 55 years, and it's been some struggles, but it's also been a whole lot of happiness, and I wouldn't give it up for anything in this whole wide world. I still love him.
Okay, so when you all decided to get married, what went into your decision for you all to decide that you all want to be together forever? What made you decide that?
Back then, I think Rachel was 17 or 18, I'm not sure, and I was 20 or 21. I just came out of the military, and the part that she told about how we first met, I was young then. I can't remember that part. But and I remember actually on a date, and we had our first date at the state fair, and from then on, just built from there.
Now, is this before or after the dance?
That was after the Valentine dance.
Okay.
He did escort me around with his army uniform on. That was sharp. I had on my red dress, and it was sharp. We were really good looking.
So how old were you when you got married?
18.
And I was 22.
Okay.
So it's 4 years different of age.
Okay. So tell me what it was like to be a young married couple, young, even black married couple back during that time, that environment. What was life like as a young married couple?
For me, it was really breathtaking, because I had never, ever lived on my own. And talking about living with Charles, and we came and lived here from the very beginning, and I was just really concerned about if I was going to be a good housekeeper, if I was going to be a good wife, if I was going to do everything that would make him happy. And it was devastating to me, because and I knew that I'd be right around his family, and I said, God, I don't know all about that, and I didn't know how to cook, I didn't know how to wash, I didn't know how to do nothing. I mean, it was just it was really nerve-wracking for me, and I can remember praying to God, asking God to help me, to be a good wife, and to be able to take care of the house and do things like that. And God did. I mean, from way back then in 1964 up until now, I can say God has truly been with me as being not obedient all the time, but being a wife that still care about how things look, and trying to make my husband happy. Yeah, it's been, but at first it was very hard. I tell anybody, when you starting out, and we didn't really date that long to really get to know each other. I mean, and I mean, we liked each other, we loved each other, and all that great stuff. But you don't really know nobody until you really live with them. You really don't. And that was really something, because I had to come in contact with his relatives, and he didn't know mine that well either. And so it was a learning process for us both. But we survived, and I never ever put him down for not liking some of my family members, and he's never put me down, because some of his was kind of devastating too. So we just learned to cope.
All right. Anything you want to add to that?
At that time, back then it was kind of hard, for black people to get a job and stuff.
Yeah.
But through me, with my father and my grandfather, they taught me to work, and they taught me my trade, and that was the key, because I always, I love to work. I love to work now if I could. And what I say, just work and provide for your family. And the way it is now, you just have to work. Regardless of the education you have, the key, if you get a good education and don't like to work, you're still not gonna make it. So just work.
Bring the money home.
Support your family, and you'll survive.
Yeah.
You gonna edit this, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Charles is so funny. And the best thing is that you can laugh together and not get offended if one's laughing at each other. We laugh together.
Good. So you started building a family.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about the childhood years with your sons, both raising them and you as a married couple while you were raising them. The difficulties, the ups and downs.
That was really dramatic, because first it was Tyrone, and I was really a scared young woman, and everybody was telling me, don't do this, don't do that. But I can say about Charles, he treated me like I was a porcelain doll. I mean, he just like opened the door for me. He just like made sure everything was just perfect for me, and I just loved that. But he doesn't do that much now, But he was, and when Tyrone was born, he was a fantastic father. He helped me. I stayed home 5 years before I began to work for work on a public job, and he supported us. He was a good father. And then came along Troy, and we would have had 5 kids, but I had 3 miscarriages before I had Troy. And Troy was like a fast child, and he still is. But Tyrone is doing great, and Troy's doing great, and I just love being a mother. And right now I'm a grandmother and great grandmother, and I'm just excited about that. When you have children when you're very young, you think you just want to do everything right. There's no way that you can raise them like you would want to raise them perfect, because there's no children's perfect at all. And even me, I wasn't a perfect mother myself. So because it was always someone in our house drinking water or getting cookies or something like that, and it was a trail of kids outside playing basketball. But all in all, every one of those kids, including mine, turned out to be okay. They are good kids, and most of them went away to college, and we'd have sleepovers here during that time, and I would call up the mother and dad and tell them they were here, and the parents felt comfortable with them being here in our house, sleeping on the floor or whatever. We had fun. Charles, as I say, he was around, peeping around the corner and making sure that everything was like it's supposed to be. So I just enjoyed having kids. I wish we could have had more, because my dream was I wanted to have 8 kids, but God only blessed me with 2 boys, and so I'm thankful for them. Yeah.
Uh, at the time that we started having kids, uh, back then, as they grow, the kids in the neighborhood, it was our kids too, and it's something our kids do something, the neighbors will tell us and we tell them, and it was a family thing, back then. But
Yeah.
but now, if you can't do it, you can't scold a child, you can't uh, uh,
Discipline at all.
just your own kids actually, and nobody else, because the law gonna have some say so over. It's a different day, and I think that's the reason the kids now they kind of be a little wild, because they know that they have control over us.
Mm-hmm. Um, a lot of times, young married couples don't realize that pregnancy can have its complications. Tell me what some of in as much detail as you want to, about some of the difficulties of going through miscarriage and issues like that when you're a young parent.
That was really devastating for me, and even now, I wondered, I wonder just how those 3 kids, whether they were boy or girls or boys or whatever, and I never lost that memory of just knowing that I was, because it was somehow I always knew when I was pregnant before I even went to the doctor, and several times it just happened so fast. But with me losing those 3 babies, um, I would wake up with nightmares, and I would wake up just crying sometimes. And Charles was really compassionate with me until I got over it. But I prayed for another child, and God sent me Troy. So God has a great plan for all of us. But when you losing a child, whether you get to see that child or hold that child or not, it's always there. You always think about that was one of my children's, and we would have had 5.
At what point in you all's marriage did you find yourself, and maybe it was early on, becoming more focused on Christ?
For myself, I said from the time that I came out of service, I wasn't, going to church, all the time a lot, and I hadn't joined the church then. But after I met Rachel, we was married probably a year, right? Probably a year or so. Then I joined the church because and,
Shady Hill.
Yeah, it's Shady Hill, and the reason I joined it because we used to go to church a lot, other churches around. So I joined it. And I said that it's time for me to just join and make a change. And I was I think I was 20. Wait a minute, I probably 25 when I joined. I joined Shady Hill, and I've been there ever since, and I enjoy it, and I believe in God, and it's just you know, and having ups and downs, but I always, come back to Christ, come back to church.
Me, when my grandmother, up in Cedar Grove, we would have to walk to church, and my grandmother would not let us sleep, rain or shine. You had to get up and walk maybe a mile or two to get to that church, but she would make sure we got there on Sunday morning, and those old timey churches back then, we could hear the people singing like before we even got into church. We'd be coming down the hill, and that was, we could hear the people singing and shouting and clapping their hands and stuff. And I often wondered, I says, now what making them sing so loud, and what's going on in that church? And I said, I couldn't wait to get into church. And when I would get in there, they would be having such a good time. And I said, I want that kind of joy in church too. And it was just like amazing. They were glad to see each other, and they didn't sit around and talk about nobody. After service, they talked about God and Jesus. And I said, I want that kind of relationship. But God has always been in my life, because I saw that in my grandmother's life. And I wanted to, when I married Charles, to bring that into our marriage, because I remember those old people, and they had been married forever. Like, they had like 14, 15. Some of them had a bunch of children, but they were still together, even though they were having hardships. Financial stuff was going on in their life, but they were happy people. And I says, I wanted that kind of life with me and Charles. And so when Charles joined, and we were just like connected to the church. And most of the time now, me or either Charles going to be in church. And because of the struggles in life, even though we're never had hard times like my people that I knew that was going through a whole lot of struggles in church, but we had different kinds. It's always different kinds of struggles that people go through, and I know the only way that they can make it is through God. Yeah.
So you raised a preacher.
Yeah.
And became a preacher. How? How did that happen?
At that time, we were like going backwards and forwards to church. And like I say, I enjoyed church. I've always enjoyed church since I was a little girl, because there's something about being connected to the church. But I didn't want to be called to be a preacher at all. And to back up a little bit, I mean, that happened not in my younger days. It happened in my latter days. And Tyrone became a preacher. Pastor Barnette, he became a preacher before I did. And I remember him just talking about how he felt about God and what he wanted to do for God, and that he wanted God to be pleased with his life. And he was always impressed with me and his daddy, because he says he said he was raised in a home that was united with God. And then God started dealing with me. And when he called me and he says, I want you to preach the gospel, I says, no way. So I told Charles, I said, I went in the kitchen. I remember going in the kitchen telling Charles that God had called me. And he says, well, he called you. He didn't call me. And it hurt my feelings so bad, because I've never did anything in my marriage that to my knowledge, that would make Charles not to want to be connected with me, you know. And I says, wow. And I went back in the kitchen was there, and I went back down the hall, and I had tears in my eyes and stuff like that. And I says, and I didn't just answer the call right then. And I waited, and God just kept putting it on me, just like, I'll be with you, and dream after dream. And I says, oh God, I says, but I don't have the support of my husband. He says, and I remember this one dream I had, I'll be with you. Open your mouth and speak. And he says, and spread the good news. And I says, well, I'll do it. And so I did, and I told Charles, I says, whether you go with me or be with me, I'm going to go. And that's what I did. Yeah. But it was devastating not for him to say he called you, not me. When we're supposed to be one. That won't right.
So tell me, Mr. Barnette, what is it like for you surrounded by preachers now?
Well, it's a good feeling right now. It's good. It's a good feeling to have a wife as a minister and have a son as a preacher. Because from the get go, I noticed Tyrone, a young age, he was called in because I know his action, the way he was doing. He was studying on his own. He was doing stuff on his own, and the thing that he was different from other kids, and it makes you feel good to have a wife and a son.
What is the best advice that you would give as far as being married and making it a happy marriage?
When you're young, you're gonna be tried. Now you're gonna have ups and downs, and you're gonna have a lot of things going, but don't be so quick to walk away. And my old saying, I always said, tomorrow's another day. And usually, like as husband and wife have an argument and stuff, you're gonna have that anyway. And you just tomorrow's another day, and that thing just turn around. So nowadays, a lot of people, if they have a problem, they walk away, and it's not not time to walk away. Just go ahead and stick together. Just wait tomorrow thing could make a turn. And through the years, that's the way our marriage been going, and we just kept going. Tomorrow's another day, and we've been married 55 years. So it just you make sure you edit it.
I think the reason that our marriage has been successful is that when we do have the ups and downs and get mad with each other. Yeah, we do. We get mad with each other. We let each other know what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and sometimes Charles don't agree with me the way I feel, and I don't agree with the way he feel either. But on the downside, we do not go to bed mad with each other. I disagree with that. I'm going to do something nice for him. I'm going to let him know that it really didn't matter that much. And when he comes, he might go off by himself and come back. And he's just like, forget it.
Tomorrow. We actually tomorrow, another day.
And so we're back friends again.
I thought about it and said, So it's over the years
it's okay.
There's no perfect marriage. There's no perfect marriage, and things not gonna go your way all the time.
And I like being with Charles.
And have respect for the other your wife or your husband.
Yeah.
And
I wanted that vow says for better or for worse.
Support each other.
Support each other. You're right. You funny.